Hello, my name is Cassie. Welcome to the Living Stones podcast, and we are joined here today by Adina. Adina, would you be willing to introduce yourself some?
I'm an EMDR therapist, and I work with children and adolescents as well as adults. And I have lots of interests. That's the problem, actually.
No,
I love helping clients who've experienced all kinds of stressors, and I have a special interest in people with high sensitivity as well.
wonderful. Yes. So today we're talking a little bit about EMDR and myths associated with EMDR. And I've found that a lot of people, when I say I do EMDR, they're like, what is that? What does that mean? So maybe we can kind of describe a little bit about what EMDR is, kind of put it in simple terms for people.
Yeah. So when I work with children and we're going to do EMDR, I often tell them EMDR is a brain and body connecting therapy. And it's one of my favorite tools. And EMDR, bilateral stimulation, is just stimulating your body on alternating sides. And when we do this while I'm thinking about or working through something that's been hard for us, we can desensitize the memory, make it feel less painful or less stressful to us. And then and also when we use the bilateral stimulation in EMDR, it calms our brain down so that the thinking part of our brain can take over and we can start thinking more logically about what's happened to us. And it's an amazing way I've seen the body heal lots of hard things that people have experienced. And the way the bilateral stimulation works to calm our brains down, it's just really, really effective. Yeah, one of the reasons I love it is because you can work through something really hard and also be able to calm yourself at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And things that people feel have been stuck for so long through EMDR, they're able to heal from. It feels amazing to them. Yeah. So myth one, lots of people who have heard of EMDR have also heard that it's some sort of hypnosis or some sort of mind control. So speak to us about that. Is that true?
I have had numerous teenagers especially say, "Are you going to hypnotize me?"
Yep.
And I always say, "I wish." So I've never been hypnotized. So this is an interesting question or an interesting idea. I think that the difference from what I understand about hypnosis and what I know about EMDR is that in EMDR, the client is in control of what is going on.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important. And we're not asleep or numb. We're actually in EMDR. It's really, really important that we're very present.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I tell kids when they say, "Are you going to hypnotize me?" I'll tell them, we could use eye movements, but we could also use tapping, or we could use butterfly hug, or we could use other alternative forms of bilateral stimulation.
Yeah.
We don't have to do the eye movements. So if people are nervous about it being hypnosis, there's other options. But I don't think I've successfully hypnotized anybody with EMDR yet.
Yes, like you said, it's the opposite goal. We want to be very present, and people don't get lost, or they're still conscious. They're still very much in charge of what's happening. But it makes sense that would be a fear.
Yeah. And we're thinking at different levels, but we're engaging that prefrontal cortex to think about and make sense of something hard that's happened to us.
So it seems like the only similarity is probably the back and forth that's associated with hypnosis and EMDR.
Yeah.
All right. So myth two is that through EMDR, people have to relive their trauma and re-experience it, and that will be re-traumatizing to them, which is a legitimate fear that people can come in with. So speak to how that works with EMDR.
It's a really, really great question. It's actually a concern because if EMDR is not done properly, or it's done with someone who's not properly trained, then it is possible for someone to be re-traumatized. But through all of the trainings that I've had, you're definitely wanting to help a client who's doing EMDR process in a way that is safe for them. And I love EMDR because we don't go through all the details of a memory
Yeah.
usually, just picking one part and different thoughts and different body sensations that go with that
Mhm.
one part. We're not necessarily progressing through the memory chronologically all the time. Sometimes people will do that, but it's often a piece of it.
Mhm.
And in EMDR too, we often give distance from the
Mhm.
memory. And
Yeah.
that's really, really powerful because when we can get some distance from that thing that
Mhm.
feels so connected to us and so connected to our bodies, when we have that distance, then our brains are free to be able to
Mhm.
process it in really adaptive ways.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first started doing EMDR, one of the reasons I wanted to do EMDR was because I was noticing trying to do trauma work with just regular talk therapy,
Mhm.
people were actually getting
Mhm.
close to being re-traumatized. So
Mhm.
EMDR was exciting to me because of the opposite. There were so many tools and ways to
Mhm.
keep clients safe from that,
Mhm.
that it actually felt the opposite to me.
Yes, sometimes when clients are working through a memory and it can
Mhm.
be really intense, there's moments where we won't, the client will not even have to describe what's happening.
Mm.
They can do it completely quietly.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so they're not even hearing the trauma re-spoken.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be spoken out. So that's actually one of the beauties, one of
Mhm.
my favorite parts of
Yeah.
EMDR is that someone can process something really, really intense and they don't have to be feeling like they're
Mhm.
reliving it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that piece too, I love because the therapist doesn't have to know all of the details. So if someone comes in with something that they feel very ashamed of
Mhm,
or
mhm.
embarrassed about, they don't have to share the specifics and they can still work through their trauma, which isn't the case in all trauma therapies.
No, no, and I think that's so powerful, when people are dealing with things that they don't want to hurt other people
Mm,
with. So
mhm,
sometimes I have teenagers that say, "Well, this thing that happened to me was so bad, and I it's so bad, I don't even want you to be
mhm.
disturbed by it."
Yeah.
And with EMDR, there's actually a protocol you can
Mhm,
use called blind to the therapist where they don't
mhm.
even actually tell the details of it
Yeah.
to the therapist.
Yeah.
So it's just such a yeah, it's a beautiful
Mhm.
piece of EMDR for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
The third myth is that EMDR creates false memories.
Mm.
Yeah. So is that true?
This is an interesting question,
Mm.
really interesting question.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever had a client,
Mm.
from my observation, create or make up a memory.
Mhm.
So my short answer is I don't think that's
Mhm.
possible. And I've worked with a lot of clients for
Mhm.
many years now
Yeah.
with EMDR, and I've not seen that happen. Sometimes though, maybe this myth comes from the idea that sometimes when people are processing a memory, things that they hadn't remembered before,
Mm. Mhm.
once in a while, they will, as the memory is desensitized, they're then able to remember more things because their prefrontal cortex is able to be engaged in a new
Yeah.
way. And so I'm wondering if maybe it could come from that. Maybe
Mhm.
that's why that where that myth would come from. I love with EMDR how the true
Mm.
thing is usually what a client is
Yeah.
surprised by, that what feels most true is what comes out in
Mm.
the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what is stored in traumatic memories is often less true
Mhm.
than what they end with
Yeah.
after EMDR. Things like beliefs that I'm responsible for
Yeah.
that trauma or
Yeah.
I am unsafe now because that happened to me.
Mhm.
Those things aren't true,
Mhm.
but they're still stuck with that memory. So, as you were saying, the more they reprocess, the more the truth actually comes to light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Myth number 4, EMDR is overwhelming. It's gonna overwhelm my system and be too much.
Yeah. Yeah. This sounds similar to the re-traumatizing
Mhm.
piece. Yeah. EMDR done properly, it should never
Mhm.
overwhelm a client. We have, there's a part of the protocol at the beginning where we talk about a stop signal. So the client is always in charge and the client is always encouraged to say, this is too much.
Mhm.
So also, along with that, there's a big piece of EMDR that's body awareness and noticing the sensations in your body.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I really try to do at the beginning with clients doing EMDR is helping them to understand what's happening in their body and to be able to express that and verbalize that,
Yeah.
especially with children and adolescents, giving them that emotional vocabulary. So,
Mhm.
if they feel overwhelmed, they know how to say, I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But we also, each client has a unique stop
Mm,
signal. We talk about it at the beginning and what is that? And it's often like a hand up, but
mhm,
sometimes it could be something else. The goal is to avoid them being
mhm,
overwhelmed. That being said, with EMDR, we're working through a lot of hard stuff.
mhm.
So I would describe it as hard work
Yeah.
a lot of times. And I
Mhm,
have clients that work so hard in
mhm,
session. But as far as overwhelming, we want to avoid that.
mhm. Yeah.
And I think a competent EMDR therapist will always have that as a goal that their client is not
Yeah,
overwhelmed in session.
absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about how there are 8 phases to EMDR, and the reprocessing of the memory doesn't even start until phase 3. And so phase 1 is history taking, and phase 2 is all about building
Yeah.
resources and preparing the client so the client's ready to engage with those memories, and that there are ways, if they start to even feel close to overwhelmed,
Yeah.
that we can help them come back from that.
Yeah. And those are really great tools that clients not only use in session if they feel
Mm.
overwhelmed, but they can take them out and use them outside of session
Yeah,
when they're
that's
feeling
true.
overwhelmed. So I love those, especially working with children who sometimes feel very overwhelmed. And I love it when they come back and say, I did my safe place when I
Mm.
got upset at school, and the way that works even outside of
Mm.
session.
The next myth is that EMDR is just for PTSD or just for a single traumatic event.
Mhm.
Is that true, or can it be used for other things?
So that is not true.
Mhm.
Absolutely not true. But I think originally it was often researched and tested with those big T traumas, those
Sure.
big experiences.
Hmm.
And it is very effective for those things for sure. Um, but more and more research is being done, and it's amazing the things that EMDR can help with
Yeah.
OCD, with anxiety,
Hmm.
with I'm working now on getting more training around depression and suicidality
Yeah.
even. And so EMDR can work for lots of things.
Yeah.
And you talked about in the last myth, we talked about some coping skills and it not
Hmm.
being overwhelming. So EMDR is just really good at helping us cope with
Hmm.
whatever
Yeah.
challenges we might be facing.
Yeah. Yeah, and those things that seem to us like they're not traumas, clients will often say, like, well,
Yes.
so many people go through so many worse things.
Yeah.
This is so little.
Yeah.
But what I say to clients is, if it feels a little bit sharp, then
Mhm.
let's work on it. It can be something that feels sharp and comes up in your mind or affects the way that you are in relationship with the world now.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I've even done work with clients on just they want to manage a certain situation that keeps kind of recurring and they want to manage it better
Mm-hmm.
and they want to respond better. And so EMDR can be done not necessarily just around diagnoses, it can be done around situations and things that are stressful or an ongoing situation that just you want to handle in a more adaptive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so cool to work on past things and then get to see clients' current stuff change because of
Yes,
the past stuff they've worked on.
for sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The next myth is that EMDR is a quick fix or magic. And I see this coming up when sometimes clients will come in who've read something online or have seen some research on single event trauma, and they'll say, like, well, I've heard that this works in 6 sessions or 8 sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah, speak to that some.
Well, sometimes I think it's magic, actually. But that's coming from someone who it's my favorite tool.
Yeah.
So, um, EMDR is a very powerful tool. However, it's really, really hard to predict how long
Mhm.
um, a certain thing might be resolved because everybody's brain is different, everybody's body is different, everybody's experiences are
Mhm.
different. So we can't predict that.
Yeah.
And sometimes also with EMDR, it's a process that will uncover other things that we
Mhm.
didn't realize. Oh my goodness, this is
Mhm.
something that could be solved.
Yeah.
Things that we've accepted, maybe that I'm just going to live with this the rest of my life. We find, oh, we could actually work on this
Mhm.
and change how I'm responding with
Yeah.
things. So,
EMDR looks really different for those populations.
yeah, for sure. And I have been trained in advanced protocols that do address those recent
Mhm.
event situations. And I love using them
Mhm.
because they are super effective. And it can work. EMDR can work very quickly for a recent event. And that's a whole nother podcast, probably
Yeah.
talking about brain consolidation and how that all works. But if an event has happened really recently, sometimes EMDR can give very, very quick relief. But all that has to do with how the brain works and how long the memory has been sitting there.
Yeah. Yep. So our next podcast is EMDR in the brain.
There's so much research on it. It's
Mhm.
fascinating. Yeah. Another reason why I love EMDR, but one of the reasons why I really started looking into it was because there's so much research and it
Mhm.
makes sense. It
Mhm.
makes so much sense.
Yes.
This is how the brain is designed to heal.
Absolutely.
And we're just joining it. We're just joining our brains and giving it the environment and the
Yeah.
support it needs to heal and adapt.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need a new podcast called Living Stones Geeking Out. And then we'll have we talk all about the brain and how it works. And yes. Yeah. So the next myth, you sort of started answering already, but the myth is it's only for adults.
Oh, I love doing EMDR with children.
Hmm.
And I I originally started doing EMDR right away with children because I was only working with children when I
Hmm.
was trained with EMDR.
Yeah.
And kids process things so
Hmm.
fast, and their brains are extra flexible and they're fun. They're
Hmm.
really, really fun. Kids are also creative.
Hmm.
And, but also at the same time, children are able to, they're honest and they'll be able to say, oh, yeah, I feel that in my, in my belly or they're able to connect things often in ways that sometimes us grown-ups, we have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And they tend to have less inhibitions. And so we can get right to work often. And yes, absolutely.
Mm.
EMDR is fantastic for children. And I have seen it work for children with, um, like somatic situations, for
Yeah.
example, and really quickly sometimes, like chronic stomach aches and things that are, you can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes EMDR can work
Mm.
with kids to help
Yeah.
those resolve.
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
How young, or maybe the question is, what developmental stage does
Oh,
a child have to be at to be able to do EMDR?
oh, that's such a good question. So, in my experience, the youngest one I I did some work with very little though was around 5.
Hmm.
And you can do it younger. There are protocols for doing it younger. It's parent assisted when they're younger. And you use something called a parent narrative, and it's a really beautiful way to help a child process things. So it can be used on really, really young children. I haven't done any younger than 5, but I've been trained to do younger than that. But I find when kids are able to verbalize and express themselves, and also when they're able to express what it is that's bothering them. That's
Mm-hmm.
really, really important. And
Yeah.
so if a parent notices that their child is able to identify that this thing bothered them or
Hmm.
this thing is bothering them,
Hmm.
there's what we call in EMDR a target.
Hmm.
So if we have a target with a child, then that's often really helpful.
Yeah. What kinds of things do you find are helpful to keep a child engaged in EMDR?
We use sand tray. I love using sand tray to engage them. I find out what they like and often try to use those things that they like, those things they enjoy. EMDR with kids is very physical. So we're not sitting down like you and I are
Mm-hmm.
and having therapy.
Yeah.
EMDR with kids is very, very active. We'll do hopping and
Mm.
jumping and drumming and using other things besides tappers, although kids love tappers. They'll walk into my office and say, can I have the tappers now once
Yep.
they try it? But yeah, it does look a little bit different as far as how it's done with kids. It's
Mhm.
much more physical. But
Mhm.
I think with adults, it could be if we
Yeah,
wanted
the
to do.
drums sound amazing.
Yeah, yeah. But I often do ball tossing with them,
Mm.
and I'll toss left and then right, left
Mm.
and right. Especially with older kids, I'll do that.
You mentioned tappers, and the next myth is that it's all about eye movements. And some people who know a little bit about EMDR can picture somebody
Mhm.
following the fingers back and
Yeah.
forth. Is that true? What are the other options?
Yeah. So basically anything that alternates left
Mm.
and right. So eye movements was what they originally started using when EMDR was developed. But we have these little toppers and there's different kinds, but
Mhm.
they give a little pulse, and you hold them in your hands, or some people like to put them on their shoulders. They're
Mhm.
almost like a massage chair. It's that kind of
Yeah.
sensation, a little bit of a buzz,
Mhm.
and it'll go right, left, right, left. So we use tappers sometimes, and people like tappers if they want to process with their eyes closed. Some people
Mhm.
really like tappers. We also do foot tapping, sometimes tapping with your feet and or marching even. But
Mhm.
then butterfly hug
Yeah.
is one of my
You
favorites.
wanna teach me that one?
Oh my goodness, I
Let's do
love
it
butterfly
together.
hug. Okay, so if you're feeling stressed or you want to relax or you want to calm yourself, you can try this. This is the butterfly hug. Put your hands up in front of you, face your palms towards you, and then cross them over and link your thumbs. You now have a little butterfly
Mm.
right here in front of you. And then you want to take the wings of your butterfly and you want to feel for your collarbone right here. And then drop your fingertips below your collarbone, right here, kind of the squishy part right under your collarbone. Then you can tap left, right, left, right. And you can just notice your body and picture what's going on in your body, almost as if it's clouds floating by. And take some breaths, nice and relaxed, but as deep as you can into your belly. And when you stop, you can kind of slow down the tapping. Take another breath. How does your body feel?
I noticed myself breathing deeper before you even said
Mhm.
to do so. Yes, but yeah,
So,
immediately.
butterfly hug is really amazing to use if you wake up in the middle of the night and can't go to sleep.
Mhm.
You don't have to do this on your chest. You can just lay with your hands on your side and tap here. You can tap this way with your hands crossed. You can also do it this way. You could just sit like this. I tell
Mhm.
kids that if they're ever stressed before a
Mhm.
test, they're sitting there nervous and they're waiting for the test to start, they can do it underneath their desk
Mhm.
like this, just
Mhm.
right on their knees.
Yep.
So it's a great tool. I use it when I take off in the airplane, when I
Mhm.
feel a little nervous or there's
Yeah.
turbulence in the
Yeah.
airplane. I'll sit here and just do it on my lap like that.
I love that.
It's a great tool.
Yeah. Speed for the butterfly hug.
That's such a
Slower, faster.
good question. Really, really good question. What I say to people about butterfly hug is that you want to um, notice if you feel like your body feels anxious or fast, and notice how fast you're tapping those wings,
Mhm.
how fast the wings are flapping, and slow them down with your breathing,
Mhm.
and just go with whatever feels most calming to
Mhm.
you. If you're ever doing the butterfly hug and it feels like you're getting more anxious, slow the tapping
Mhm.
down. That's
Mhm.
usually really, really helpful.
Mhm.
If you ever feel like you do the butterfly hug and it feels bothersome to you, even when you slow down, I would say just take some deep breaths.
Mhm.
Don't do the butterfly hug and talk to your therapist
Mm.
about it next time you see them.
Yeah. Yeah. So the slow taps with the butterfly hug are a resource, like we talked about building for EMDR. And then the fast taps would be for reprocessing in session with
Yeah.
your therapist.
Yeah. I'll give you an
Mhm.
example of this. If you use this with kids, I'll often share with parents this is a good tool when their child is struggling to regulate their emotions. And I tell parents to do it themselves
Mhm.
to calm and regulate their own body
Mm.
and let their children watch them.
Mm.
And so calm yourself first and notice and do it really slowly so that they do it really slowly. And don't you're not trying to fix anything.
Mm.
We're just calming our body.
Mm.
That's all we're
Mhm.
doing with it. So you can model that and co-regulate with a child as well when
Mhm.
you're doing it. But we don't want to be necessarily trying to solve any problems. We're
Mhm.
just trying to calm the body down. So
Mhm.
as long as we stay away from trying to solve a problem or fix something, that's best done in a therapy session
Yeah.
um, with your therapist for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And that's actually the next myth is around these DIY EMDR
Mhm.
um, apps or YouTube videos that are popping up.
Yeah.
What do you think about those?
So I'll give the caveat. Butterfly Hug is actually, we use it as an EMDR resource, but it is not
Mm.
EMDR. EMDR is what's done in
Mhm.
therapy sessions with your therapist. And EMDR is really complex.
Mhm.
You go through some pretty intense training to become an
Yep.
EMDR therapist. And I'm always growing, I'm always learning,
Mhm.
I'm always honing my skills
Yeah.
as a therapist and studying and reading up about what the best practices are with
Mhm.
it. So EMDR is a very, very complex
Mhm.
therapy that is super, super effective. And so I do think it's really wise to be careful about what you're seeing online. I think that bilateral stimulation, the right, left, can be a great calming technique, or
Mhm.
the butterfly hug, really, really great for regulating or co regulating with another person. But if you want to use EMDR to process something that's stressful or challenging, you want to do that under the care of a therapist for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it goes back again to that risk of re traumatizing
Mhm.
as well. You
Yep.
don't want to get into that territory. And we're trained in EMDR to avoid that. And bilateral stimulation is a really powerful tool, and we want to make sure we use it carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. The last myth is that EMDR erases memories.
Mm,
And some people that come in for
mm,
EMDR will say that I don't want it gone. I don't want to not remember that this happened.
mm.
Speak to that a little bit.
Oh, this is actually one of the most lovely
Mm,
parts of EMDR
mm,
because memories are never erased. I have never seen a client have a memory go away.
yeah.
I use the metaphor of having like a file cabinet
Mm,
that you have all of these papers in, but instead of them being filed all nice and flat and straight, they're filed, they're all
mm,
crumpled up into these horrible balls. And these are our memories that have been stored in the traumatic
mm,
form. And so in EMDR, we take those balls of paper out,
mhm,
we flatten them
mhm,
out, we smooth them. Sometimes we write notes on them,
mhm,
new ideas and new thoughts, and we decide when it's right for that to be
mm,
stored back in our long term
mm,
memory again,
mhm,
but in a really, really usable,
mhm.
productive, adaptive state.
Yeah.
And so I've never had someone have a memory go
Mhm,
away. Most of the time, people actually come out with being able to look at the memory
mm,
more
mhm.
because it's got a lot of truth. It's wrapped in a lot of truth once
Yeah.
it's been processed. And so you have neater file cabinet,
Mm,
but everything's still there.
mm,
All of the papers are still there. They're just filed with new ideas, fresh ways of thinking about things. It's all just stored there adaptively. Yeah. So in my experience, that's an absolute no. I've never
mhm.
had someone
Yeah.
lose a memory. And I think that's especially a concern when there's grief,
Mm,
because when we've lost someone, we don't want to forget, even though
yeah.
it's really hard and we might feel really sad. We don't ever want to forget,
Mhm,
or we don't want to forget the things that we've learned too.
mhm. Yep.
So it's absolutely beautiful when people have hard things happen, and after EMDR, they're able to look at them and see them as beautiful
Mhm.
pieces of their life when before they were so hard to even look at.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. It is beautiful. I love that analogy. I've never heard that one, the file cabinet. I will be stealing that.
You can have it. It comes from my own messiness, probably, because my file cabinet is not super organized.
So, what would you say is a piece of advice you would have for somebody who is thinking about EMDR, is maybe a little bit skeptical but interested?
Hmm. I would say, I think the best thing you can do is see if you can find someone who's had EMDR and talk to
Mm,
them.
mhm,
That's how I found out about EMDR.
mhm,
And I would say talk to them and ask around. And the
mhm,
same goes for if you decide to engage in EMDR therapy, finding a therapist.
mhm.
Talking to people, and word of mouth is often the best way to find a
Yeah.
really competent therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if already in therapy with a therapist who does EMDR,
Hmm.
um, if you trust the therapist and it
Yes.
feels
Be
safe,
brave.
yeah, jumping in. And there are ways to start with memories that feel a little less intense than the big ones as well. So, good
Absolutely.
direction to go.
Absolutely. And with EMDR, if someone feels a little nervous or anxious about trying, if they communicate that to their therapist, they
Hmm.
can talk about what would feel least
Hmm.
anxiety inducing. And I've worked with clients and kids, just, I'm annoyed at my brother about
Hmm.
this thing he
Yep.
did, and it's
Hmm.
really little. And they can see how EMDR works with that really
Hmm.
small annoyance,
Yep.
that low level stressor,
Hmm.
and they can see how it works. And if they like it and it's useful for them, then they can move on to other stuff if they'd like
Yeah.
to.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so you've asked all the questions now.
Hmm.
I'm going to ask you one.
Okay.
What is your favorite part
Mm.
about, or your favorite thing about being an EMDR therapist?
Yeah. Yes. I would say before I learned to do EMDR, I found that a lot of clients were struggling to heal from deep, difficult things in their lives. And when I started EMDR, I got to see very quick change
Mm,
and lasting change and things that shifted in people who'd been in therapy for decades, sometimes that were experiencing incredible shifts
mhm.
with EMDR. So I love to do EMDR because I get to see those things and walk that journey with clients.
Yeah.
And how about you? In closing, what would you like to say your favorite part is?
Oh my goodness. It's similar to yours. I love discharging clients. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably my favorite thing. When I get to do EMDR with clients, they get discharged from
Mm-hmm.
treatment.
Yeah.
And clients who have come to me with like treatment resistant
Mm-hmm.
depression,
Yep.
going to maintenance or going to every other week. And then, we talk about, I actually don't need therapy anymore. I say,
Mm-hmm.
as a therapist, I think for most people, therapy is not forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a season. And so I love when those seasons come to a
Yeah.
close
Yep.
for clients and they're functioning and doing all the things that they had set as their goals
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of therapy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just seeing how healthy my clients are able to become and the new lives that they're living, I just couldn't imagine anything better. And it's why I say I'll do EMDR till the day I die.
I love that. Yes. Well, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your expertise and your ideas. It's very appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us. I hope to see you next time.